pawn e4, pawn c5, knight f3, knight c6, pawn d4, pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, pawn e6, knight c3, queen c7, pawn g3, knight f6, knight d4, b5, queen b8, bishop f4, knight e5, bishop e2, bishop c5, bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, pawn f4, queen b8, pawn e5, pawn a6, pawn takes f6, pawn takes b5, pawn takes g7, rook g8, knight e4, bishop e7, queen d4, rook a4, knight f6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, queen c7, castles queenside, rook takes a2, king b1, rook a6, bishop takes b5, rook b6, bishop d3, pawn e5, pawn takes e5, rook takes f6, pawn takes f6, queen c5, bishop takes h7, queen g5, bishop takes g8, queen takes f6, rook h1, f1, queen takes g7, bishop takes f7, king d8, bishop e6, queen h6, bishop takes d7, bishop takes d7, rook f7, queen takes h2, rook d1 takes d7, king e8, rook d7, e7, king d8, rook d7, king c8, rook c7, king d8, rook f7, d7, king e8, rook d1, pawn b5, rook b7, queen h5, pawn g4, queen h3, pawn g5, Queen f3. Rook e1. King f8. Rook takes b5. King g7. Rook b6. Queen g3. Rook d1. Queen c7. Rook d1, d6. Queen c8. Pawn b3. King h7. Rook a6. King g7. Rook a7. King g8. Rook d6, d7.